Before the Resident Evil 9 Requiem review gets underway, there will be major spoilers for the story of Resident Evil 9. So, if you haven't played, click off now, and if you have, well, grab your popcorn, grab your drink, and let's get right into this verdict. Resident Evil 9 is such a solid game. I mean, down to the horror with Grace, down to the action with Leon, it's all combines into a very fun and memorable experience whenever you're starting in the care center, the hotel, or when you're ending off in Raccoon City, and especially the Ark. So this game, without any bit of hesitation, deserved my attention, and most importantly, a verdict. So this section, the story part of it will be divided up into 5 parts. The hotel section, all the way up until the end of the first Leon playable section. Then afterwards, it's going to be the whole care center from the start in that dark room where Grace is tied up all the way till the water treatment. Then it'll be the outskirts of Raccoon City, then the RPD little section, that and the orphanage, and then lastly will be everything covering the Ark. So, wanted to get that out of the way before we get this started. So, let's start with the hotel section of the game. So we're starting off with Resident Evil 9, The Office, where we first meet Grace. Grace is more introverted, more, socially anxious than all of our previous characters. So her boss requires her to go to the hotel where her mother was murdered. So she reluctantly agrees, and she gets there, and you have an officer come in with you. And, you explore, you see how decrepit and dark and ruined this whole hotel is. So once you, do all the little stuff like opening the door, figuring out the few little things you need to, you get to the room where there is a lot of pictures of Grace and her mother, which starts a flashback to about 2017, about when Resident Evil 7 takes place, or a little after. So then what happens in this flashback is her mother is alive, and they talk, and the lights go out. So then this is kind of a cause of emergency. Both of them get out, leave, well, at least try to leave the hotel before getting downstairs, where this guy is saying like, oh, it's a power outage, nothing to worry about, and then he is just killed on the spot in front of him. Alyssa shoots that guy that killed him, and then they run out of the hotel and whatever. They get to the main hall or whatever it is, I'm not sure what you'd call it, and right before it ends, Alyssa is killed right in front of Grace. And that's pretty much the end of the flashback. It is very short and sweet. Maybe not sweet now looking at it. But then we get back to the present day where you start leaving and you remember the thing Mom left in the painting. So you go downstairs and check, and weird, there's a strange man that walked across that window. Weird. So you find it out, and then all of a sudden this officer comes in with something that stung him. He's just sitting there rubbing his neck, and you're like, what the hell is wrong with him? And then all of a sudden he becomes a zombie. After dealing with him by throwing him out the window, you meet up with this strange, mysterious dude that names himself Victor Gideon. Well, Grace tries to run away, and she's pretty much choked out by him. Yeah, kind of weird. This whole opening section with Grace really sets the tone for the type of gameplay she's going to have, with more horror, more classic Resident Evil fashion gameplay. And we get to meet the other half of the game with Leon. He has more of a shorter section with the first half of the game, because he's also trying to figure out these murders, and he's just trying to connect him with Grace as well. So then as he's going to the hotel, he sees Gideon holding Grace, and he's like, yeah, that's alright. So he pretty much goes, tries to track him down, and it doesn't end well because people are infected with some sort of strain of T-virus, and by the time Leon even catches up to him, he has disappeared. This immediately sets the tone for what the entire game's going to be like, because with what I just said for Grace's section, where it's more classic Resident Evil fashion with horror and everything, which is going to be the main part I'll be talking about with with the whole care center section. There is a lot to talk about. But Leon is just an evolution of his gameplay from Resident Evil 4, and I love what they did with him in this game. Alright, so this is going to be a big section, so I'm going to try to run through this as fast as I can. So, you wake up as Grace in this dark, abandoned place. So pretty much all you got to do is figure out how to get the fuse, figure out how to get the hell out of here. So, once you figure out where the fuse at and what you need, you go into the room where the screwdriver sits, and all of a sudden this big monster comes out of nowhere, grabs his body, and just feasts on the head, and you just see this thing looking at you, and you're like, what in the world is that? It is huge and it's scary. So the simple objective is you need to get the fuse and get the hell out of here before this thing kills you. So as you're trying to escape, the gate opens and you're pretty much out for freedom. But this thing steps into the light and it burns because this thing hates the light. So it grabs Grace and it's pretty much like, oh boy, Grace is over. And then we start with another Leon section. This one is just pretty much him just going through into the actual care center himself, and everything pretty simple. Goes through, kills maybe a few zombies, and then eventually meets up with Grace where she is escaping from the girl. And after Leon puts a few rounds into her with the Requiem, the gate slams down and he gives Grace the Requiem, which is kind of a horrifying thought that Grace gets this all-powerful weapon and she's not ready for that thing. And now the goal is simply, like every other Resident Evil game, you need to collect 3 things to escape. You need the sun, the moon, and the star quartz. First one, fairly simple. You know, go upstairs, you gotta do a little code, not that hard. The second one, you need a bottle of acid to actually get the lock off. Then you also have a run-in with Gideon at that point. And the third one is in Braille. The only way to get this one open is you need the level 3 access thing. And you need the girl, the blind girl in this containment room called Emily. She's able to read Braille easily, and you need her to actually go and open this thing. So once you bring her over, do a little lockdown, she opens it, and you're like, sweet, we're about to get, and she's kidnapped by the girl, by the big monster again. So then you have to jump down into the darkness, another descent into darkness. And then we catch up with Leon again, where he's been pretty much out for the last few hours, and Gideon has him tied up and kidnapped. So once you get out of Gideon, fight the Chung, do the whatever else you want to do in the care center as Leon, you find a hidden office, and it has Grace written all over it. Quite interesting. And now, we've got to cut back to Grace again. So once you're down into the darkness, into this whole dark and atmospheric place, it is quite horrifying, and it really heavily reminds me of Amnesia's The Bunker. Because it is dark everywhere, there's no light, you have nothing down here. All you got is the little flashlight and a power generator core that you're able to plug into. So once you find Emily, well, I mean, simply got to get her out of there, so it's not that hard. So then you get her, take her out, you escape that whole basement area before leaving with the hand of the girl. You know, like slice with the elevator. So then you escape, and there's a helicopter waiting for you, which is quite weird because it's like a helicopter. So then this the pilot comes out, says, oh, my keys are down in that basement. So you go down and you see this horrifying test subject room of all this stuff. And this is where kind of hits the fan, because all of a sudden it's all quiet, and then you see Gideon talking, and then he storms off. Then for you to escape, the whole facility is filling up with blood, and there's everything going wrong. A ton of stuff is going down. So once you leave, you get into the helicopter with the pilot, and before you know it, the helicopters crash, and now we're back to Leon. All Leon really does in this section is he provides Overwatch to Grace so she can get into the church and try to save Emily, because she was impaled upon the helicopter crash. So once Leon's section is over, you go back to Grace in the water treatment plant, where she pretty much puts Emily away so she can deal with the girl, because if she gets hit with the sun, she is killed. So after doing the 3 little things you gotta do down below to open up that hatch that opens the sky, the girl is killed. You go back to Emily, and all of a sudden she becomes this monster that Leon has to put down. This was a very hard thing to watch, because a veteran that knows what's going on has to put down this thing that Grace has no idea what's going on, but all she knows is it's Emily in there. So once the beast is put down, Grace just B's like, yeah, I'm done, Leon. I don't want to do this anymore. Gideon gets hurt, and then this guy that looks awfully a lot like Wesker, I deemed him as Zesker, is Zeno. And he pretty much just says, we have a lot to do, Grace. And blah, 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 blah. Pretty much, this is what leads into the Raccoon City section and Leon's whole section. Overall, this whole section with Grace was awesome. It was scary, and there was so much that they did, which, I mean, I'm going to save it all for the gameplay section, because I really had an enjoyable time with this whole section. And now with Grace heading to Raccoon City, Leon also must endure the adventure and the nightmare that Raccoon City was. So there is 2 sections in Raccoon City. You have the outskirts, and then you got the RPD whole section. So let's start with the outskirts. This starts off with Leon entering this haunting and death of a city. Once he arrives, he gets out of his nice ass Porsche car, by the way. You know, got flex out watch in that car too. Oh, I meant sorry. Whoops, sorry. I definitely I got a little off topic. He gets out, and you explore before noticing all these giant webs. And this giant spider comes out of nowhere. Leon is like, what the hell is that? I can't blame him. I was in the same boat too. So pretty much a boss fight ensues. You kill this thing, then you eventually get to the actual main part of the outskirts, like where this giant gate is. The objective is simple. Collect 3 parts to activate this bomb and the repair kit. So I'll save a lot of details here. But you gather all 3 parts, you repair it, and you put the bomb on. Which starts, I think, the coolest section that Leon has. He has a motorcycle section that him and Gideon fights. Like, pretty much ride all the way to the RPD. And at the end, they do kind of like a jousting where he just shoots Gideon's bike and he just flies off and he just goes boom. Once arriving at the RPD, it is a nostalgic, nightmare-fueled trip for Leon, because he remembers that day so vividly, as in flashbacks. So once you go around, you have to go find Grace, because she's here sitting at the RPD. So once you eventually enter the hallway, you hear Zeno and Grace talking, and this starts my most hated section of Requiem. The orphanage section. I don't know what it is with this section, but it could have just been a cutscene. I don't understand narratively what was the point of this. Because I understand that these girls are clones. They're imitations of Grace. Why? this was a waste of time. This was like 15 minutes that we could have shaved off. I think the game would have been infinitely better if it didn't have this. Either way, you get done with that section. Get done with the whole orphanage. And Leon comes in and he's like, Grace! And saying all this stuff. And Zeno's like, sorry, Mr. Kennedy. I don't have the time to spare. Drops down a tyrant. And you pretty much redo the whole fight with the tyrant without the rocket launcher. It was so much fun fighting this guy. Oh, it was awesome. Then once the fight is over, you get to the orphanage and you figure out that there's a path to the Ark in all this plant stuff. So once you slice and dice through all the plants, you fight the big mama that's guarding the entrance. And conveniently, there's some red barrels you can shoot to kill this thing. So upon entering the Ark, well, you see the nightmares of Umbrella's last skeleton. Now we have entered the Ark, Umbrella's last bastion. So Leon gets in here and he's looking for Grace pretty much. I mean, you fight some dudes from Call of Duty, then you fight Hunk, which is an awesome fight, by the way. That was awesome. I loved every second of that. He may have kicked my ass first time around. Either way, you get into the room where Grace and Zeno are, and, well, pretty much you and Grace escape from Zeno, and you get into the dumps. Once arriving into the dumps, Leon pretty much enters stage 3 of the infection. Because this whole game, he's been infected with the T-virus. Because when you get to Raccoon City, he's stage 2. Once he enters the Ark, he's in stage 3. Which prompts another Grace section of a pistol, 17 bottles, and absolutely nothing. Even though Leon has the whole arsenal of like 27 shotguns, 27 SMGs, 500 rockets. It's not fair. And to put it simply, all you need to do as Grace is help Leon escape, get 2 balls, watch some YouTube videos, and that's it. That's an oversimplification. Then, once you return as Leon, you pretty much fight lickers, fight some zombies, do some stuff. And once you pretty much enter the room that was at the picture of this section, Leon pretty much just drops. And he's like, oh, I'm resting my eyes. Because Grace sees this when she's done watching YouTube videos, goes down, helps him out, and this is where the game gives you a choice. Do we destroy Elpis, or do we release Elpis? And I'll put it like this. Destroy is bad, release is good. Because when we destroy it, Leon gets Grace out of there, but in return, his life is cut short by Zeno. Grace rides the elevator, and there's only a helicopter waiting for rescue. But if we release Elpis, Zeno puts that injection into himself, and he rids himself of his power, which returns Gideon from the dead, which ends up killing Zeno. Leon is saved by Elpis, gets rid of the T-virus in his system, which all comes down to one epic conclusion between Gideon and Leon. This was by far the coolest fight ever, because Gideon becomes Nemesis. Well, stage 3 of it. And Leon is... I refuse to believe Leon and Dante are just not different people. They're the same people in different universes. Because what he does at the end is so cool. But once he's put down and he finds Grace, him and Grace are alone in the darkness. Until Wolfhound from Village finds Leon and Grace. And after, they have a little chanter, Leon talks to Sherry about getting her a vaccine, talks to Grace that Emily is still alive, and before he walks off into the sunset saying something about, I don't know where Chris is at, he takes his glove off and supposedly he puts a ring on. And before we know, that is the end of Requiem. But hold on, there is one little thing. Grace is on the phone. There's a slight contrast difference between her being more introverted at the beginning of the game and extroverted, more out there, putting her not as anxious as she was at the beginning, where she is at the end. It's really cool to see it. But overall, this whole story, I really enjoyed it. But I've rambled on too much with the story section because there's a lot I wanted to say, and I kind of need to talk about the gameplay and other stuff. So either way, let's hop over there. So this section, besides generalizations of the gameplay, will be split into Leon and Grace. But before we split into those sections, I want to talk about how the game plays overall, because the game gives you an option to either play the game in first person or third person. You can either have Grace as first or third person, or you can have Leon as first or third person. And they did some changes where if you're in first person, instead of the gun being like held off to the right side of the screen, it's in the center. I think that's kind of a cool change. I like that change. And the biggest change that they did from the zombies from Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3 is instead of them being mindless husks that walk towards you and just, I don't know, for blood, flesh, whatever, these zombies in Requiem have human tendencies. What do I mean by that? Well, let's look at Grace's section. Let's look at some notable ones. You have the butcher, where he continues his routine of, cutting up meat, checking the food, and all this stuff, which is quite horrifying when you hear that just thump in the distance. Then you got the light guy. Every time I have to deal with this light guy, he's getting 5 bullets in the back of the head. I hate this light guy. I don't know what, I can't dodge him. Because if you turn on the light, he's like, too bright, and he ends up turning it off. And then another bigger example, I'll end off with this guy, is a sound. He hates sound, and if you make any bit of sound, like running, shooting, throwing glass bottles, anything, he runs over and he just wails. But I do really enjoy how these zombies feel more human, which ultimately sucks when you kill them, because one of the maids, they go like, oh, I'm sorry. You're like, ooh, that's rough. But I think that's kind of the big one, because without diving into either of them, there's not much else I could say. So I'm thinking to do it like Requiem did. We're going to hop into Grace first. As I said within the story section of this video, Grace's whole gameplay is very classic Resident Evil, where you have to manage resources, there's a lot of horror, and the game doesn't really give you much. I mean, sure, it throws you a bone here and there, but the game doesn't, you have to manage stuff, like classic Resident Evil fashion. And one of the ways this game does it is, Grace only has a pistol, and that's it. She only has a gun, which is rough to deal with. Because it's like, do I fight? Do I run? Do I sneak? Do I fight? Do I shoot? Do I not shoot? And the only other weapon she really has is the bottles. She either has the empty bottles that can be used as distractions, where you can throw it in the zombies or liquors or whatever maybe there, run over and check it out, or you could throw it at them and you can run up and push them down. Then she has 2 other bottles she's able to use as weapons. The first one you get when you're in the basement with the girl is the Molotov cocktail. This thing does wonders for crowd control. And when the girl is right there, you just set that thing on fire and just throw it at her. Now make sure you don't miss, because if you miss, you will not be having a good time after that. And the other one she has, and she gets this when she's in the Ark after Leon hits stage 3 of the infection, is the bottle of acid. Now I don't know how many the game actually gives you, but I only got like 2. I didn't actually have any bottles to create more, but these insta-kill liquors, which makes, when you got like one right there, it makes life just throw it at him and just run, which is what I did. Ooh, and I forgot to mention, because I must have just forgot about it, but she also has the Requiem that Leon gives her. Now, the fact that this man gives her 1 bullet in the Requiem is quite dickish of Leon. But with that bullet, it's like Do I shoot the butcher? Do I shoot the singing lady in the piano room? Or do I save it? Because there's a lot of questions. It's like, what do I do with them? And the biggest thing Grace has, gameplay-wise, is the blood collector. Because when you kill enemies, they can drop either 10 blood, or depending how hard the enemy is, they can drop up to 100, maybe 150 blood that you're able to collect, and you're able to, craft steroid stabilizers, ammo, the injectors, and so much more. Which, if we're going to that point, the other thing that Grace has is the classic inventory, where instead of having like Leon's whole section where you're able to customize it, fit as many, like, whatever, pretty much giving you the freedom, Grace's inventory is the block inventory, where you only have, like, you pick up an herb and it's like 1 block, or you pick up a shotgun and it's 2 blocks. It makes her inventory and not having enough, or have too much of, like, a bunch of different items, it makes it a nightmare to deal with. But I mean, Grace's section, if you're looking for that classic Resident Evil feel, Grace is right up that alley for you. Because if you're terrified, most likely she's also 10 times more terrified than you. Because she has ever been put in these situations. And that's why I think is very important to have a character like her where you can actually be scared. Because if Leon was in these sections, all the tension, all the horror, all the atmosphere, everything would be thrown out the window, because Leon is not the character that gets scared. He's already dealt with this in, Resident Evil 2, 4, 6, all those games, so it wouldn't do much to him. Which, speaking of which, let's go take a look over at Leon's gameplay, because it is drastically different than how Grace is played. The main selling point of this game, Leon Kennedy, was, I'd say it was a pretty great choice. Because we all love Leon. Look at how well the Resident Evil 4 remake did. Everyone can't get enough of Leon. So, the biggest question is, how did they evolve Leon's gameplay from Resident Evil 4, where he's able to parry chainsaws, parry crossbow bolts, and all this crazy stuff? Well, simply, instead of giving him a knife that he has to repair at the merchant, he gets a damn hatchet. What is there not to love? With this hatchet, it's pretty much, instead of the knife, you get an axe. And every time you use it, the blade gets, the axe. You pretty much have to sharpen the blade to repair it. And this thing becomes such a vital part of Leon's kit. Because when you have to, when you're fighting bosses, fighting enemies, you're able to just parry, maybe deal a lot of damage, or get out of fatal attacks. But then when we look at his inventory, where he's able to fit like a rocket launcher, 17 shotguns, 300 SMGs, 500 rounds of everything, it makes me go like, Leon, come on. You get all this inventory space and Grace gets nothing. It is, I love Leon, but man, I was so fed up with his inventory at some point. I never ran out of inventory. Never ran out of space. Even on casual. My casual playthrough. I never ran out of space. That's how ridiculous it was. But yeah, pretty much, he gets the body armor from Resident Evil 4. He's able to upgrade the weapons, which, I wish there was more in-depth things to do with it, because it felt kind of less lackluster. Plus, really only 2 pistols that Leon gets. He only gets the basic alligator, which I don't really care for the alligator, if you ask me honestly. And then he gets the Cat 40 from Black Ops 2. I mean, I went with the Cat 40 because that thing was pretty good. But it just felt weird that he just didn't have more, because the game gave you the basic weapons, like the basic SMG, sniper, and all this stuff, and then it gave you a better version of it, which it was weird. But overall, Leon's whole gameplay pretty much stayed consistent. Instead of being, Grace's horror horror-filled atmosphere, Leon, the best way I can describe how Leon is, when you're playing as Grace, you fear the monsters. When you're playing as Leon, the monsters fear you. Very Doomslayer-like, because there was points where I was running in with a shotgun, just not even caring. I was like, bang, bang, bang. It was quite mean. Which overall, I think it was actually a really fun experience. The two contrasts, because in my eyes, horror should always be way above action. Because if action rises way above horror, it loses what it means to be, a horror game. But overall, Leon's whole section, fun, awesome, action-packed. I couldn't get enough of it. But now I want to talk about the special enemies and the boss fights now. So, the game doesn't have as many bosses as I thought, because I was counting them, and there's only 4 main bosses. Actually, I think it's 5. I guess I couldn't count right. And then we got 1 special enemy. So, first off, let's talk about the 1 special enemy. If you played the Resident Evil 1 remaster, you would find Crimson Heads to be very, very annoying, and they suck. So, Resident Evil 9 went like, alright, we're going to do that again, but we're going to call them Blister Heads. And the only way to make sure these guys cannot be Blister Heads is to either hit them with Grace's injectors that make them pop, or you can run away when you're playing as Grace. If you're playing as Leon, either pop their heads off, or when they're down, you can put the axe in and just rip the head off and it pops them. So these guys are a little bit of a nightmare to deal with because they can one-shot you too. But now let's head over towards the bosses. The first one you truly deal with is the girl, with all the little encounters, and you can't really kill her. The only time you can kill her is with that hatch that opens up the sky. That is pretty intense section. I mean, there's not much else I can say that I haven't already said. So let's go to the next one. The next one is, and I would call this kind of like sub 1 of Victor Gideon, but it's when you're on the motorcycle and you're pretty much fighting him, shooting the dogs and everything. But in my eyes, that's not really a boss fight, so it's a mention here, but it doesn't really count. So the next one is the Tyrant fight. When you're escaping from Zeno and escaping from him, you run through the whole RPD, getting away from him, make sure you don't get insta-killed. Right before the orphanage section, you fight him one last time, which is pretty much how you fought him in Resident Evil 2. You shoot the bean heart on his chest. And he has a lot of one-shot attacks where I think one of them he throws you up into the air, then he throws you into a car. That is almost an insta-kill if you do not smash the... For me, it was the A button, X on PlayStation, whatever it is on PC. Quite terrifying fight. It was a little scary, but I was like, you know what? Bring it on, Tyrant! I am not afraid of you. Then the fight after this doesn't happen. Actually, much longer after that is the Plant 43 fight, where pretty much simple fight, opens up, you shoot it until the barrels come out. Simple fight. And the next one is Hunk. His whole hand-to-hand combat, where you have to use the axe. It's a lot like Krauser's from Resident Evil 4, and I really liked Krauser's fight in the remake. In my eyes, it was a step up from the QTE cutscene. But, fun fight. It was really cool to kill Hunk at the end. I mean, you got that axe and just stuck it in the side of his neck and just killed him. Super cool. And the last one is at the end when you release Elpis and you fight Gideon as Leon. Because the only thing Gideon has is he starts off as himself with his left arm, I believe, quote me if I'm wrong, is Nemesis's tentacles. And he's able to, like, become the power of Thor, use lightning. At some point, this only happened in my first playthrough, I cannot get him to get that rocket launcher again. Because he used a rocket launcher, I shot it out of his hands, and I was able to use it for myself. I can't get that rocket launcher again. And I feel like I'm crazy when I tell everyone else, I'm like, yeah, I shot him with the rocket launcher. It's like, well, I didn't get the rocket launcher. It's like, what? I don't know what to do. And then once he enters his second phase where he becomes the giant nemesis thing, well, you fight him, you get 2 waves done, he picks you up, and you pretty much jump up the whole arm, slash the main thing, and the fight's over. The boss fights were kind of... Oh, I know. Oh, I missed another one too. The worst thing is I wrote down all the boss fights and I forgot all of them, even though I spedrun the game. Been playing it a fair bit. Wow, I can't believe it. The one I forgot is when you get to Raccoon City, you deal with a giant spider. That was my apologies. That one is right after the girl fight. Because you get in, you see the webs, and you see all that. Then you deal with the babies, and you fight the actual thing. And eventually, the building comes collapsing down. The floors do, and it's killed. Wow, I even wrote all that stuff down, and I completely forgot about the spider. Yeah, my apologies, guys. Overall, I did like the bosses. I wish there was a few more sprinkled here and there, but otherwise, enjoyed the bosses. This one will be a little bit smaller of a section, but the environments of Requiem were vast and unique. When you're starting off with the game at the Redwood Hotel, you're seeing civilian life. It is, I know, it says a lot when you're actually seeing life and not zombies everywhere. But it felt really cool when you get there, you see the life, and you see everyone going on with their day. Then you enter the hotel where it's all abandoned, old, creaky, worn down, and you can just tell that it's like, oh, it's definitely getting ready to be demolished. And then you see the outbreak of the syringes. Gideon shoots at some of the civilians, seeing how chaotic, how fast people don't understand what's going on can create to a lot of problems. And then easily my favorite section of this, well, one of two of my favorite sections is the care center. This thing is vast, scary, and cool. And one of the notes I actually have written down right here is when you're in the main hall, the main center, you know, not in the east or west wing, it is well lit and white lights. That is pretty much the safe zone, because when Grace gets into it, she actually turns her flashlight off, because the east and west wing are really dark. Like, they're dark. There's, yeah, sure, there's lights here and there, but it's not well lit. The lights are orange, they're yellow, nothing, well, there's maybe a few white lights here and there, but nothing too notable. I think it's a really cool detail, and if I can find the video, I'll put it in the description for you guys to watch, but it talks about how the game uses light versus darkness in the game itself, where light guides the player. Light is safe, darkness is dangerous. Such a cool detail. And if you notice, Grace's whole section takes place during the night, and when you eventually open up the skylight, you let the sun tear the darkness out. Oh no, I thought it was really cool. Then once you hop over to Leon with his section in Raccoon City, it's during the day. You already experienced Raccoon City at night. Why would we do that again? So they put it during the day, and when you get there, it is dread. It is, I don't know how to describe it. It feels like everywhere you look, there could be a face in a window, an eye, a ghost watching you. It's haunted, it's abandoned, it's lonely, desolate. Even the sound, the track that plays when you get here, it's all uneasy. And I think that's what I really like about it. Because, yeah, I mean, the light is being shown on the darkness that happened in Raccoon City back during the second game. And easily my favorite thing, this is kind of, I don't know where to put this one. I think it fits here because of storytelling and environmental and whatever else. But when Leon rips that bike where he just wheelies it and goes up the side of that building and jumps off that thing, that was so cool. And it felt like him actually kind of rising out from the darkness, rising into the light. It so cool. And the other notable thing I wanted to mention was when you eventually hit the RPD. If you remember in the second game, it was dark. It was mainly dark. That's what it was. And you just sit there, you look around, especially that upper floor where it was all just dark and you couldn't see where you were going without that flashlight. This game has that roof ripped open from the missile strike, and you could see the light just peering through the darkness. And then the last one we're gonna hit, and I don't know what to say, is the Ark. Now, I don't really care for Umbrella's facilities. They all look the same in my eyes. They're quite bland. They're bland, they're bright. The only thing I could say notable about them is they don't have sharp corners in the main parts, you know, where the public would see. Or, well, I guess like lower, well, whatever, I don't care. It's more rounded, there's not as many sharp edges, more unique shapes. No boxes, whatever else. But I really enjoyed the environments of this game, and I thought it was, I had a very splendid time looking at everything, especially playing the game a few times. So now, there's only one thing we got left to do, and let's head to my verdict. With everything I've said for the last 40-ish minutes, Resident Evil 9 Requiem it's a bit early to say, but it may be my game of the year. Everything about this game, down to the details, down to every thought put into it. I said this to my dad the other day, where this game is a English teacher's wet dream of the amount of detail and thought and everything that was put into it. Hell, at the ending, they put the Requiem hits the police lights just right where it makes a heart. It's things like this that makes a game feel awesome, feel cool, noticing the little stuff. But honestly, if you ask me what Resident Evil 9 Requiem ranks in my eyes, the game is a solid 9 out of 10. I wanted to say 9.5, but the only thing that's knocking it down is definitely the orphanage section, because that was the only part of the game I really hated playing. Everything else wasn't terrible, and the worst area besides that, I would say, would be potentially the outskirts of Raccoon City. Otherwise, the game is fun, definitely worth a play if you haven't already picked it up. Because, I mean, come on, Leon, and you haven't played the game, sorry, hey, Mike, you're missing out. So either way, I mean, I want to know, if you've played Resident Evil 9 Requiem, what are your thoughts on it? What did you like? What did you hate? And if there's anything you could change, what would it be and why? We have come to the end of the review, my acolytes, and honestly, this was a big one, and I won't lie with you, the Claire Obscure Expedition 33 review is coming out next month. I needed a little bit more time with that one, because there is a lot I want to say. Honestly, that one may be pushing an hour, with how much there is in the game alone. So, either way, thank you very much for listening to me talk for the last 45-ish minutes, however long it's been. And if you enjoyed, please leave a like and subscribe. If you thought anything I said was stupid or ridiculous, drop a dislike. I would like to know. And either way, thank you very much for watching, and I hope to catch you next time, my acolytes. Take care.